Alright, so, hi, I'm Dragor. I've been a Dungeons & Dragons nerd even longer than I've been a furry nerd. Yay!
Yay!
D&D helped me figure out some furry stuff, so also yay.
Yeah.
Who here has been to one of these things where I blab at you about D&D before? Perfect! Yay! I can tell the same stories. I mean, there's only so much D&D a person can play.
It's not true.
Oh.
That really depends on who you have to play with.
Okay, well, so I still have to do the job thing, and I haven't made DMing a job yet, but if I could figure that out, that'd be pretty cool. I actually have a friend who, kind of wants to do that. So yeah, I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for a long time. I started in 6th grade, so that would... Oh my gosh. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for 2/3 of my life. Right? Cool. See, that's the response. Those people will be like, ugh, go away, I like my fandom! I started playing D&D and I didn't understand really the roleplay aspect of it. I understood R-O-L-L, I did not understand R-O-L-E or what backstory was.
Maybe there's backstory besides I'm a barbarian.
So, the original discussion that was had, some of my friends had started playing it first, and I didn't know what it was. So they're like, no, dude, you gotta, join us with this. Alright, you gotta make a character. Alright, what? I'm like, alright, fantasy. I had played Diablo and Diablo 2 before. I played some other games, so I knew what sword and sorcery was. I want to be a wizard. I like throwing fire at things. Gee. So I'm like, alright, you gotta come up with a name. Oh, I'm gonna call myself Diablo, because fire and brimstone. Is that his nickname? What's his name? Where was he born? In a volcano. I didn't understand that I was supposed to actually make a character at all. It took a few years of being silly and understanding, oh, these characters that I, enjoy in other mediums, I can make one of those myself with my own ideas and my own story. It took me a little bit to figure that out. Fast forward to who here has been to Gen Con? Who here does not know what Gen Con is? Gen Con is the convention that was started by Gary Gygax, the guy that made Dungeons & Dragons. So to this day, it is, I believe, the biggest gaming convention in the world. 2 years running, it's had 60,000 unique attendees. I went when it was still like a 23,000 person convention, only. And I played this game called NASCRAG. It stands for National Society of Crazed Gamers. And their whole thing was, it was a tournament, so you showed up, they gave you your character sheets. Your character sheets had backgrounds and knowledge and motivations and things. And they like to say they emphasize roleplay and puzzle solving over, combat and tactics. The tactics are as much as, if you come up with a harebrained scheme that sounds amusing, sure, you're the heroes. That's why the harebrained schemes get to work. They would encourage silly accents to the point where they would tell you, if you want to do advanced, how do we advance? We're getting the puzzles right. My group was a very maths and language-centric group. Any riddle or puzzle you sent to us, one of us in the group could figure it out quick. We weren't advancing anymore. Stay in character, always. What if we have to talk to you as the GM? There's something wrong with the table or whatever. They're stay in character, always. And it was a brain-breaking moment, because once I started doing it, then other people at the table started doing it, and the GM started doing it. And I think that NASCRAG game was responsible for what I would call my first actual immersive game experience. And I have not cared about rolling dice as much ever since. That's a personal thing for me. There's nothing wrong with a good tactics or dungeon crawl. Those can be a heck of a lot of fun. That's not where I focus or where I take most of this panel. I do try and focus it more towards build a character, how do you get into an immersive game. So that's my missing a lot of stuff spiel for what's going on. So I like to ask more questions at this point. Who here has never played before? Cool. Who here would still say they are new to role-playing games, like pen and paper role-playing games in general? A couple of people. Who here has GM'd before? Ah. Who here hasn't GM'd but wants to? Yeah, there we go. Since I'm curious, since a lot of you were GMs, who came here with wanting to ask a particular question? Okay. I've had like half the room's hand shoot up before.
At
Where-
the end. At the end.
No, that like this is kind of a forum and Q&A thing, because every audience has different experiences. So like one of the times we got sidetracked talking about not Dungeons and Dragons games. People were like, "We've done Dungeons and Dragons a bunch. We kind of have the itch for something else. We don't even know what's out there, what's worth playing." It's like if you go look up pen and paper role playing games, it's a choice paralysis long list. How do you know what you want to go to? So it's kind of turned into that before. So really, I just kind of take this where the group wants it to go. Just want me to blab. I'm glad to keep doing that.
There was a group I was a part of that got burned out on D&D 3.5.
Yep.
They were asking for advice on other games to play. They started rattling off all these other options, and they finally decided that they'd go for something completely different and went with Pathfinder.
I'm sitting there like, he's not going to say it. He's not going to say it. Dang,
Sorry,
he said it.
I wanted to be here when I was at the...
Alright, so for like just general Dungeons and Dragons things, you're never going to hear me rag on a system. One of the leading things I always tell people is, it might not be, it's not that it's not a good system, it just might not be a good system for you and or your group. Now there are some systems where like mechanically they're not sound, they're broken. But you can, if this idea is cool, you can work with that. As most of you know that are GMs in here, the rules really are more of a guideline than rule of law. It's a book of suggestions, not a book of rules. If you follow their suggestions to the T, ideally a well-designed game will just work for you, at least at a mechanical level. In that regard, I would describe Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition as, I started playing 2nd edition. While 3rd edition came out, that same group decided, because a lot of them were way older than I was, but hey, we're going to do a throwback game of 1st edition. You want to play? So I said yes, and I was in a 1st edition game for a couple of weeks. Then we did 3.0, 3.5, did some stuff in 4th. I wouldn't call 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. I'd call it an excellent tactics and dungeon crawl system. Did not feel like Dungeons & Dragons at all. And 5th edition, of all of these editions I played, 5th edition I would call the best Dungeons & Dragons experience for me. Or if anyone's looking, it captured the magic of what I felt when I played 2nd edition for the first time, except the rules are really well done. For anyone that doesn't know, 2nd edition got really weird. Really, really weird. And if you introduced psionics or skills and powers, mechanically the game kind of fell apart if you didn't have a GM to keep tabs on things.
Race-specific level caps, every level,
Yes.
every class having different experience totals to get to the same level.
Yep. It was, I admired the uniqueness of it. I was introduced to Dungeons & Dragons, so like, that weird style was what I started with. I didn't realize most other role-playing game systems weren't that strange in that regard. So, huh?
Yeah, after 2 weeks first.
I do like 2nd edition. If I were to run a 2nd edition game again, I would start with a list of house rules.
I played 3rd edition, 3.5.
Yep.
Back with a group of power gamers, so that was...
3.0,
Warrior
3.5,
and
and Pathfinder you can power game the bejeebus out of it.
And it
They are still great systems. I wouldn't say in spite of that.
Yeah.
You can work. Who here has had an issue with power gaming in their group before? So power gaming, it depends on the goal of your group and game. In general, power gaming is described as a negative term in that you have a group of people that want to sit down, have fun with the Dungeons & Dragons game, level is the general way on how you determine how overall ultimately equal the characters are. So yes, they have all vastly different abilities, but in theory, a level 8 fighter, a level 8 wizard, a level 8 rogue, they all bring things to the table in equal amounts.
Oh, well, is fighter and wizard is angel summoner and BMX bandit.
Power gaming is described in general as you have figured out how to build a character that, yes, they have that number next to their character level, but they are disproportionately more powerful than other people at that same level.
As you say, this the guy that straight to my head.
So I was a total rules lawyer and power gamer for a long time until this NASCRAG thing that I told you guys about happened, and I'm like, I can have fun a different way? It was, so, let me get this out of the way. Don't assume people at your table, even if you are not having fun or don't like what someone's doing, don't assume they're doing it to be malicious. I can tell you firsthand, some of the most fun I've had was figuring out, playing with the numbers, and doing stupid broken wizard stuff in 3.5. It was a puzzle to me, it was fun to me, I liked that I could sometimes shock other people, like, you can do that? Here's the rules, like, here's my citations. That actually was fun for me. What I didn't understand at the time was if you do that too much, that could bring someone else's fun down. So by default, don't assume a power gamer is doing that to ruin other people's time. They're probably enjoying being the standout person like that. They might just not be aware that it's bringing some other negative things to the table that they probably didn't intend. So you gotta give benefit of the doubt. As far as power gaming goes, I have had a few failed games due to it, and then I had a couple of games where I got the group to work through it. And it basically boils down to you have to have a difficult but adult conversation with the people at your table, either together or one-on-one if you deem it is warranted. With the power gamer in particular, before a game I pulled him aside, and I'm like, your scale is so far off the map. Basically, there was a series of feats and classes and abilities you could take where if you did enough damage to someone, you got a free trip attempt. And if you did the other feats, no one could fight back against you. So he would do a two-handed swing, do 50 points of damage. If they didn't die, he would then trip them and then get a free trip attack. And this was against characters who couldn't, like, they were lucky if they could pull off 25 points of damage in a single round. So this guy was one-shotting bosses. And I'm like, it's cool that, like, the first couple of times it happened, whoa, that's badass. And then every single attack and maneuver was just, alright, I kill that, I kill that, I kill that, I kill that. He enjoyed it. Other people at the table, not so much. So I laid it out. Like, the power disparity is not working. Some other people at the table don't like it. It's making my life hell as a GM. Like, I can't put a proper encounter against you. Anything that I would send that challenged him would come across one of two ways. Either I was only making it difficult to him and other people didn't get pasted by it, or it was difficult enough for him and then no one else could do anything to the creature. Like, either it was transparent, I was catering to the one person, or it was too mean for everyone. There was a bit of, like, grumping of, it's like, oh, well, if it was too powerful, why did you allow it and everything. I owned up to it. I didn't think it would be that bad. And for the sake of the game, I asked, like, what can we rebuild to keep your battle strategies intact for what you like to do as far as tactics, but how can we scale it back? I didn't nerf him to the point where other people were better than him. He still was, overall, the most powerful character in the game, but as far as the curve, everyone was a lot closer. The disparity between the weakest and the most powerful was a lot closer. And the game was able to keep going. That saltiness, everyone got over it. And it's directly because I was able to, one, own up to, I screwed up. As the GM, if I went back and reread those rules, I should have never allowed it. Because it was kind of right there, but that's part of what the power gamer mind does like to do, is figure out the puzzle. He figured out something I didn't. And that was part of the gas for him, too. It was the first time he busted that out, because he waited until I had a big bad to present. And then the big bad dropped. So, for once, fine. If it's going to be every time there on after, I need to course correct. Anyone else have any other questions or comments on power gaming stuff? Usually people ask me about that one a bunch.
It's not quite, sorry.
It kind of put me in a hard spot where, with the whole character optimization thing, it's made it hard for me to enjoy games when I'm deliberately making the suboptimal decisions. Because I was with a pretty killer DM as well,
So
so it's hard to get used to the idea that. And no, I don't need to optimize my character to be able to do a +20 at level 5, for example.
well, and that depends on the gaming group and
Right.
style. So
But, yeah.
if you are starting a game, if you are doing Tomb of Horrors or Return to Temple of Elemental Evil, or you're doing a more tactics version of Curse of Strahd, and your DM says outright, like, if you make poor tactics decisions, you're going to die, it's important to build a good character, like, mechanically. That is what has been communicated in the basis for the game.
And then you learn out they didn't quite understand it.
Well, and you work with it. So there was a game I played that was similar to that. It was Curse of Strahd in 5th edition, and 5th edition isn't bulletproof to power disparities, but someone basically had a character idea, did a multi-class thing, and it was not working. This person they weren't even a glass cannon. They were squishy and couldn't really do anything. So after a couple of sessions, the person's like, hey, this isn't working. This is what I want for, like, the character personality. Can we retcon some rules so I don't die? And the GM was cool with it. And we just did it. We had a way of baking it into the game as well. It turns out there was some evil dude that was selling hallucinogenic addictive cookies. So the person accidentally had one, went on a trip, and that's why they have different powers now. We kept it canon in game.
I was nervous about that.
5th edition is a lot nicer on it. So Dungeons and Dragons games in general, they do have a bit more rules than, like, if I were to just say, oh, I want to play a role-playing game. Dungeons and Dragons for me is very low on my list right now because of how reliant on rules it still presents itself. I've had a bunch of fun with some of the World of Darkness games. They have their own way of handling rules, and some of their rules, I would say, are more rooted in story than in, like, mechanical tactics that Dungeons and Dragons tends to reveal itself in. Not saying that they don't. You can essentially play an enchanter in Dungeons and Dragons, never cast an offensive spell once, and do some really cool stuff. That's just not, it's not as obvious as, alright, you're an evoker wizard now, and you took the shape spell feat, so now you can actually safely fireball your teammates and not burn them. Like, that's an explicitly tactics ability compared to, oh, you're a bit more persuasive. Your enchantments are a little bit harder to shrug off, and so you're charming people, you're persuading people, you're doing illusions.
No,
They
you
don't
need
necessarily
to
have the
cast
same
fireball
tactics.
if you have a dragon breathing fire for you. I'm sorry, but some of this I got into it. We left off so many classes because it's like most powerful class was a wizard with no active combat ability because he had if he needed something to actually fight, he just had some indestructible constructs fight for him.
There are ways to do just about anything and everything. You brought up an interesting point of multi-classing is hard. I used to think so until... So in general, if I play any game, if it's going to be Dungeons & Dragons, I still generally think this way. I try and come up with a broad character concept, and at this point, it's something I want to try to do, and not mechanically. I watch a bunch of TVs and movies and such, so I just got done binging a majority of Dexter. Not Dexter's Lab, Dexter, the serial killer show. And so, it just kind of hit me. What if I had, essentially, as oxymoronish as it sounds, what if I had a non-evil serial killer? Like, what if I had a character who very clearly had a strict set of what he does and why he does it, but otherwise doesn't deviate from it? So, like, you could deem it as lawful evil, but He wouldn't steal from people. That wasn't part of his MO. He actually was quite upstanding.
How do you not get people as a murder hobo?
So, but like, I started with this what if. Alright, so like, what if my character was a serial killer? A non-evil serial killer. Because evil characters in games can rock the boat pretty heavily.
I love mine.
But, so I'm like, alright, what if I had a serial killer? And then I started going through the what ifs of like, alright, well, he's a serial killer, but what does he actually want? And I went to the next obvious question. Does he mind that he's a serial killer? Does he not want to be? Is this something he enjoys? Why does he enjoy it? Is he a full sociopath in that he doesn't really feel feelings? Or are there different things he values more than the general love and suffering stuff? So I started building this out, and I ended up with a character that was a rogue, who wasn't good at backstabbing, who essentially was a scribe and broker of contracts. I wanted something mystical about him. Like, alright, what if this guy was like a noble, and he had a desk job of sorts? What would that be in high society? Oh, on the down low, because he knows Infernal and Celestial, he'll broker contracts and things for wizards that are making deals with angels and demons. So that's how I got the neutral slant. He didn't care whether he was making a contract that he knew was going to burn this guy. As long as he got paid and he got out, he didn't care. But I'm like, what was his drive? What was his goal? Well, he didn't want to stop. So I gave him, he wants to be immortal. But then the next question was, it's in Dungeons & Dragons, it was a high magic setting. What versions of immortality was he and not okay? Was he okay with and not okay with? He wasn't okay with vampirism because that means he would be someone's thrall. The whole point is to live forever and be under no one's control. So we ended up fighting vampires with this guy, and he had that moment of, if he bites me, but then I kill him before the control takes in, and the party saw what was going on and prevented me from turning into a vampire.
Damn it!
There may have been a life cleric in the group that's like, no!
What they don't tell you about vampirism is that's not you when you're a vampire. It's a malevolent spirit that acts like you.
It depends on the lore. In this, it was the person. So there were various things like that. And so this what if that started just while I was watching an episode going, what if I had a D&D character that was a non-evil serial killer? Turned into one of my most fun guys to play, because I just started building out weird idiosyncrasies. So like, who here has seen Dexter? So it's a show about a serial killer, and he's not just, oh, all he does is kill people, and in particular his shtick is he kills other serial killers. But like early on, it might have even been in the first episode, he just had, it was part of the character, he loved pulled pork sandwiches. Like, oh, little details like that are weird and fun. So here I was, this waspish, scribe and things who didn't really eat or drink or party, but he had a love affair for a fresh donut. And at one point we got a whole bunch of gold, and instead of buying a nice magic weapon, to be able to stab people, instead of buying poisons and things, he went and commissioned not a bag of holding, a bag of ever-producing donuts. I dropped $3,000 to have this crafted. The GM was confused as hell. You really want to spend your haul on it? Yeah. Yeah. Because the fun part is that he sets himself on these things. If he wants something, he's going to work to get it. Sometimes what he wants is weird.
Yeah, sometimes.
And so just this weird kick. Now, he ended up dying because he got caught being a serial killer in front of the paladin. Oops. I don't mind that the character died. That was sloppiness on my part that it happened. It was an interrogation that went wrong.
What happened to the donuts?
The game did not last much longer after that character died, so I don't know what person took the satchel or whatever.
So you never had an opportunity to use the donuts to break the game?
Soon the ocean will be all donuts. Well, and it happened at one point because we were playing good cop, bad cop, and he was basically being the bad cop for some interrogation. And at one point there actually were donuts in the room. So I actually got up from the table as part of doing this interrogation. So I had the GM, I had him sit in the middle of the room, hands behind the chairs if he's tied up. And I'm just pacing, walking around, we're doing our in-character banter back and forth. And at one point, I don't even realize I do it. I'm walking by the table, and I grab a donut, and I ask some question. The NPC gives some obvious lie response, and I end up on a chair and go, "You want to keep breathing?" And then I rolled an intimidate check and succeeded, and I got the information I wanted out of the guy. But like that was such an in-character thing. Like, yes, I kind of did it being me, but that was totally something that character would do. So roundabout that long story gets into, if you can get out of your seat while you're playing a game and do stuff and get into it, do it. Because all it takes is one person to start doing it, that other people at the table start doing it, and before you know it, you're in your backyard, hitting each other with pumped swords, and now you're LARPers! Yay!
I just need to keep my shirt on.
Or don't.
Yeah. What happened is me, Paladin, and me and the cleric were fighting because our characters hate each other, like actively.
Yep.
And like we were full on yelling at each other, like full raised voices in this tiny house, and we're echoing off the walls. And then after we were like, "I'm sorry."
But you guys still had fun.
Yeah, after the game, we're like,
Yeah.
"Dude, I was not being serious. I was thinking two of me too."
Good! That is a perfect... So you've given a couple of examples of what to do where if you are going to have, either intentionally or not, conflict in a party. To me, conflict in a party is fun. I don't like games as much where everyone's on the same page. So some of the things you described there was screaming at each other. That's okay. Why? Because they didn't immediately kill each other. If a paladin and an anti-paladin are in an adventuring group together, how often in any of these stories, in any of our swords and sorcery stories, do a force of good and force of evil who happen to see each other just immediately start killing each other? They don't. It immediately is, gotta watch out for that guy. If you're in a party, there probably is a reason two diametrically opposed characters are in that party. They have some goal that they have to share, or there is some force putting them together.
If one dies, the other dies.
Not even that. You and another player have characters there. It is in your vested interest as people at a table wanting to have fun. If you just kill each other right away, no one's going to care. No one knows who those characters are. But if you play up the fight, the animosity, and then things come to a head, and then a fight happens, well, now you've built it up to, oh shit, maybe the rest of the party steps back and lets it play out, because it's earned at that point.
We're actually going through characters. I'm a life paladin. Not life paladin. Life cleric. He's a paladin. I just have unfortunate luck. That led to some very bad series of events involving his god and me, and like some bad things happen. So he hates my character.
Probably, I have this live though that always purposely tries to have like conflicts. It's like, and he like always says that his character can kill my character when we need to play.
Well, so it's one of two things. Either he's just doing it to try and draw something out of you, and that's just what he wants or likes to do, or maybe you gotta ask what's up.
He just thinks that you're supposed to have like big conflict in the party always. I think.
Well, and then the discussion there is, you can have big conflict in a party, but it has to have substance. Just having a character that shows up and threatens to kill other characters is
also,
like...
well,
Yeah, a character who tries to
also,
show
his
up.
character's good, and apparently he said his
That's a
character
loot bag.
kills my character. No, definitely not.
It sounds like you have to have some kind of out-of-character discussion,
Well,
because...
we have a lot, and he still thinks that his character would.
So, I have done the following. I've been... So, friends of mine, still friends with them to this day, college buddies, we would game on and off a bunch, but it got to the point where how I wanted to game and how they wanted to game was very, very, very different. And I would be there for hours on a Sunday, and it got to the point where I was doing it just to be around my friends and not because I was actually liking the game. And when you're spending that many hours doing something you're not even all that eager for, I decided to back out. I said essentially that, like, what I want out of the game isn't working. It's not, I don't want to force everyone to do something they don't want to. We'll still hang out and get trashed at the bars on Fridays and Saturdays, but, I'm gonna peace out. And it was okay. You know, it wasn't easy. I didn't want the GM or any of the other players to think like, oh, I hate these people. No, they're still my friends. I still hang out with them. But for me, that wasn't a gaming style that was fun and worth it for me to show up to. I've been in other groups where we basically sat someone down and asked them, do you want to be here? Because to us it felt very obvious that they didn't. Now I've had that conversation go two different ways. One of them was for someone who basically would show up, say nothing, and then would laugh a little bit and go home. Turns out they really just wanted to be a fly on the wall. Us playing Dungeons & Dragons, that person having a character was akin to them having to put on a stage performance. It had such severe stage fright, they never wanted to say anything. And they were relieved when people left him alone. So he still got to participate in that. He was in a group where Dungeons & Dragons happened, and he got to say he was there, and he was okay with that. And we're like, oh, well, how do you like to do your fantasy stuff? Turns out he liked to write. So we offered to him, hey, why don't you write in-character things for what happens in between game, and we'll incorporate it. So we did. He started getting more involved. And then I asked him, do you not say things because you're on the spot and just like you freeze and can't think up stuff? Like, if you know what you're going to say, would you be able to do that in character? He's like, I think so. So I was the GM at the time, and before each session, I would essentially give him a list of things that I planned on covering, and we had a very explicit agreement. I was essentially giving him spoilers. He could not share or divulge that. Like, at one point I told him, like, no one knows the big bad is going to show up here. And I wouldn't give, too much. I would just say, this is going to probably happen here. This is going to be the type of angle of what this character is going to say. And he was able to, like, think and prepare in his head lines. And I got him to start role-playing. So just by asking and talking to him, we got a better role-player out of him. He started having more fun because he didn't have to worry about suddenly being called on. He knew I would only address him when he felt okay. We had cues that could work out, like in character, where if I did address him and he had nothing, even if his in character would say something, we ended up intentionally giving him a cursed item that had a voice that would distract him. So if I ever addressed him, I also had the out where I could NPC as the cursed item to remove him from needing to speak. So that's how we weaved it back in-game. And it worked. And if I would start to do the sword distracting and he had something, he would shush the sword. And it worked. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, you got something. I'm going to roll with this. The other side of it was, we asked the person, like, do you really want to be here? And they're like, no, D&D's not for me. It's okay, you don't have to show up. Like, our feelings aren't hurt. And the person, like, we still hang out with the person, but doesn't play role-playing games with us. That's okay. That really is. It's very hard to tackle. If you've never had that discussion before, the first one sucks a lot. The second one sucks a lot, but slightly less so. And hopefully you don't have to have that discussion too much to where you're good at it. So that's, in general, for anything you want to tackle in a group for dynamics, assume everyone just wants to have fun there, and also know that you might have to essentially directly ask, what do you want out of this game? And someone hopefully will give you a cool answer, and sometimes they might give you an answer that you realize, oh, that's not what this game is about. And you have to decide, are you going to try and adapt it and make some hybrid thing where everyone gets to stay, or is it buy? So, in general, most of the time when I ask, like, what do you want out of something, compromises are made, and the group gets to keep going. So I blabbed a bunch. Does anyone have any thoughts, questions, comments about any of that?
When a player comes forward and you ask, okay,
I didn't hear the first part because of that. Say that again, please.
what's your reaction as a DM when a player, when asked, what's your character concept, says, I want to play a chaotic, neutral, tender rogue. And I'm planning on role-playing the only way I know how to role-play a rogue, and that is stealing every party member any way possible.
Just say no.
It depends on the group and the game. So, in general, any game I would run these days, if someone said that, I'd just tell them no. Like, I specifically, any game I would run, I at this point now have guidelines for what I want people to have as part of their characters. Not styles of characters. So, for example, if I laid out a framework, so, who here has heard of Deadlands? So for everyone else, Deadlands is the Wild Wild West meets Cthulhu horror. It's really cool. They did a version of it called Deadlands Reloaded, which is built on top of the Savage Worlds game system. Way more rules light, very friendly. I enjoy this setting and rules system immensely. So, alright, you can still have that type of character in the West. Well, I had a set of requirements. I said a character needs to be on the run for some way, shape, or form. It doesn't need to be from any institutionalized law office. They need to be on the run from something. They need to have the why and what they did that they are on the run. They need to have another notable person in their backstory that is in some way story-wise related and would have reason to come to where your character is should your character die. Because this was a game where Deadlands Reloaded is, in the namesake, it is deadly. So I told everyone, you have to plan at least one story-based backup character. If you die, because I didn't want anyone to not have a character to play, I want to have an easy story-related reason why the new guy shows up. And why they might know things that the other character did. So it basically would encourage reintegration really quickly. If someone came to me and said they could give me a background that started filling all that stuff out, another one I did was each person had to have 3 secrets that they absolutely did not want anyone to know. And I would give one of those secrets to another PC that they didn't know knew. I gave one of those secrets to another PC they knew who knew that secret, and then that person got 2 of their own. So I had paranoia built into my player base to start with and I told them, each of them too, one of the secrets had to potentially bring death as a consequence if it got out. So, for example, if that chaotic neutral rogue person had it built in that they stole from someone who is going to cut off both of his hands and watch him bleed out, alright, if they can fit that character to the framework of what's going on and play that, fine. I've had people tell me, like, no, that's too much, I don't want to do that. Okay. We learned early, we filtered out that potential problem early. So it's really about expectations. So if you're the GM and someone came to you with that, if that's all they can do and if that's all they want to do, how much do you and everyone else want that type of character in your game?
Almost every time it comes down to no.
There is a difficult discussion to have there. Now, a proactive way of doing that is you open with...
The general response to Kendra is set it on fire.
Well, the proactive way of doing that is just like with any of this other stuff of, this is what we want to do in a game. We want every character to follow these things. Can I help you build this? I have no qualms. I've had some GMs that are like, you will show up with a fully formed character that I know nothing about, and we will go. Because the GM wanted to just not have to worry about that. They had their own world and story, like they're kind of isolated. I have no problem. I will help anyone build a character as a GM. As a player, I will help build other people's characters. Just because then maybe we link our backstories, and then session 0, we have a reason to interact with each other. Part of the reason I did that secrets thing was a struggle I have in every game is session 0, yes, you as people all know each other, but don't have a hold on what you're doing with your characters. Sometimes you don't even have a reason for why all your characters are in the same room other than the GM said, this is how this adventure starts, and we don't have an existing room. You guys are together. Like, it's artificial. Eventually, a group camaraderie will come out of that, but it can be hard those first few sessions. So both as a player and a GM, I always try and bring as much cohesiveness to that first session as humanly possible, and that helps head off some of the other, I'm just characters, I'm going to do what I want. If there is a goal or link, or if there's something established beforehand, that gives everyone something to work with instead of falling back on perhaps old habits. If you try it, I would love to hear if it works or not.
If it comes up, you'll probably hear about it.
Yes.
So I was trying to make a character because you know how when you hire onto a caravan, you basically follow along once in a while. The caravan will set up tents.
Yeah.
And you go sleep in. Well, I was trying to make a character that says, what if he doesn't really travel and sell stuff? He just says, hey, you guys will not want to set up your tents? Hire me. I'll set up all the stuff you want. I'll even cook your food for a price. So I ended up buying this book.
What is that? I can't read that from here.
Inns and Taverns.
Is it what? What is it?
From the Red Dragon Inn. However, there is something I saw here. A new class. It's a special ability. No one of consequence. Read the example of what happens.
So I'll read it. So there's this artisan. The ability, he said, they are no one of consequence. Artisans are often underestimated by those around them. The example, the princess is chained to the wall in the far corner, ready to be sacrificed by the orcish cult. The party busts in just in time and the fight ensues. While the other PCs engage the orcs, the artisan nonchalantly stays out of the way and makes his way to the princess. Only once he has successfully freed her of her chains do the orcs begin to take notice of the artisan, forcing him to defend himself.
He basically stays out of combat unless he engages it.
So, so that paragraph, if someone came to me and said, I want to make a character based around this, at that point, to be perfectly honest with you, that description, I could make fit a paladin, I could make it fit a wizard, I could make it fit a druid, a rogue. That description of that example is about what a character, how they act, and what they want to do. In no way did that text box in on, oh, well, only rogues can do that. Fighters can be light on their feet and sneaky. Wizards don't wear heavy armor. They can be dexterous and sneaky. Maybe they are taking silent spell and still spell, so you can't even tell they're casting.
Basically what this says is, they treat the person like a peasant. It's like, he's just a peasant. Focus on the adventurers. That's just the peasant.
You can... So, Pathfinder and 3.5, to a certain extent, do something that, I'm a bit on the middle of it. I used to be of the type, you could only do something if there was a class or ability for it. I am not that way at all anymore. In general, you state your intention of what you want your character to do, and then we look at, within the framework of the game and how your character is built, how likely are they to succeed at it. Because remember, you could have no skills in sneak. Any one of us can attempt to walk quietly with varying degrees of success. So, like, none of us are practicing, or maybe you are, none of us are practicing to be ninjas in here. But we could just on our own walk lightly and have, how many of you have had a friend who's like, oh God, you snuck up on me again? And they're not even necessarily doing it on purpose. So you don't need explicit rules and training to get effects like that. So that paragraph is a great starting description of, I'd love to have a character that kind of is like that. I'd love to have a character that people underestimate and think is a peasant.
And a lot of people forget that your character does not have to dress the part of his class.
Exactly. And you can persuade that so well that you can get your other players, you can get them to forget what you actually can do. So I would foresee a character like that passing notes to the GM a decent amount. Because some of the fun is the other players don't know. I like, as a player, being able to be surprised. So if someone is in another room or is in another region and something's going down there, if my character has no way in-game or reason to know what's going on, I'll sometimes walk away from a table. I'm like, oh, I'm not here. I don't want to know. I will do that to myself on purpose, because then I get to come back and I'm like, alright, I get to figure out what these crazy mofos have done to the game. Is my character impacted? Should I be paranoid? It adds a lot to it. It can be a lot of fun in that regard.
I have a character that's a good example of this. I play a half-orc bard.
Yes!
He looks like a barbarian because he has a gladiator background. So like he has this huge weapon, he's burly, he wears, you know, gladiator armor, but he's just a bard.
Please tell me his axe is also a lute.
Please tell me
Unfortunately,
he's
no, I can't do that.
Yeah,
Well, he recites poetry instead.
Uh,
Really
what-
bad poetry.
So,
I have,
no, that is
Null
great,
Barbarian.
and that's very
I have
similar
Null
to a
Bard.
character I did. I've always, it's a common trope that everyone likes to make fun of bards for being ineffectual, and they're a great support class. You can do a lot of cool stuff with them.
Bard is a rogue +1.
So I wanted to play a bard, but I didn't want to do the standard musical bard. So instead, because they do get some healing spells in 3.5 and 5e, I basically, who here in like high school or earlier, what have you, read In the Hand of an Angry God or something like that? So my bard was a fire and brimstone sermon speaker.
My favorite
He
bard.
was this huge guy, like he would do the corpse paint and everything. He would have the, you know, the cloak and the collar, and he would walk out and he would have the book and he would start doing the sermons on how the enemies were all going to burn in hellfire, and you know that manifested in +1 for us and -1 for them. But that's what my character would do on the battlefield. He would delay healing people because this guy was devout to the deity Ilmater, which is the neutron. He might actually be the good aligned god of suffering, strength through suffering. So he wouldn't heal people that he deemed were essentially suffering from flesh wounds and things. It's like, I'm not going to take away this character building opportunity from you. We're going to set the bone without anesthesia and you'll be fine in a week. You know, we don't waste this gift of magic. This is for dire, world-ending. Like this guy was a total. He had vow of poverty on top of all of this. Like total devout suffering. He was the most like in the best way possible, the most obnoxious character I've ever played. Because the party, it got to the point where the party, they hated him in that he was annoying and that he would heal them. Like if someone just, bam, bleeding out or whatever, oh, he'd run over and fix them up. You know, it wasn't that. But it got to the point where, like, some of the characters were like, I hate that guy so much, but his convictions make me jealous. How does he do it? So, you know, it's fun, goofy stuff. I was not the most effective character ever, but it was a fun character to play. So, very similar, like half-orc bard. That just tells me I want to hear more. I want to hear what the shtick is, because that's playing against
Anytime you hear a bard, pretty much is like, what are you doing? What are you doing with the bard? Mine was Red Dragonborn bard, chaotic evil. He wanted to be an evil overlord. He was like 8 years old.
How was it showboating home?
he was very much.
I want to be an evil overlord.
I want to be a showboating home.
No, he was like, because I took advantage of the fact that apparently
Opposite sides of the spectrum there.
Dragonborn apparently physically mature rapidly. So I know red dragons lay their eggs everywhere and leave the young. And his pretty much is same deal, sort of. He was left to fend for himself as an infant, so he became an evil overlord, sort of. Great friend, but he loved murdering and blowing shit up. But if he was your friend, he'd love you forever.
He just wanted to screw straw.
Nah.
Well, he was
Goals.
pretty.
Yeah.
Who was? What?
If you guys can find a group and you guys dig horror, Curse of Strahd 5th edition is a very good adventure. It doesn't take too much editing. There's one piece in it that basically if the party goes to a certain region early, it's a TPK. Like it's bad. It is the biggest. It's the biggest criticism of that module.
God, I tried to
And so this Curse of Strahd module has basically been around since 1st edition. They remake it. It's like they remade it in 3.5. I also played it in that. They change it up, but it's a good gothic horror game, and every person who runs it's going to run it differently. So that speaks very much to its strengths. As far as one of the things I want to get to is one of the ways you become a better role player is trying different things. Myself in particular, getting on stage for Who's Lion at FurCons helped immensely. Just the mental attitude of, screw it, I'm going to try it. It doesn't always work. I've gone into games where I thought I had a great character idea, and then 3 sessions later I'm like, yeah, this guy's not salvageable. Can we like work a couple of sessions where I phase this guy out and bring someone else in? And the answer was yes, and we planned it and worked it, and I ended up having a character that gelled the way I wanted to. Stuff happens, but I'm glad I tried. And sometimes a character concept that doesn't work in one group can work well in another, or vice versa. Like, oh, I had this character that I loved with this group, I'm going to try and bring him back over here, I want to play him again. And it didn't work. I'm like, oh, my favorite character, that's so sad. Oh well, I tried.
You tried.
One of the things that I always recommend is try different game systems. In particular, I always recommend try a rules-light system. There's one in particular that is my favorite. I would describe it more as akin to, like, if you've ever seen improv troupes and things, they will play warm-up games with each other before going out on stage. I would kind of call this game a warm-up role-playing game, in that it's not meant to just go on and on and on. You play a couple of sessions and then you're good. And it's called Inspectors, and it's spelled Spectre as in the ghost. Do you know what that one is?
I've heard of it, yeah.
So the main angle of this game is imagine the world of Ghostbusters, except they have franchised. And your party, your group, is their franchise of fighting ghosts. This game is different in that there is no primary GM. There is one person, usually a lot, that studies the book a little bit more and acts as a guide. But in general, every person has a character and there is no GM. Everyone sort of GMs for each other. There are dice rolls, but it's not pass-fail. If something is simple that you describe to do, like, okay, I go and climb a ladder. Alright, character climbs a friggin' ladder. Like, okay, I'm going to carefully charge my proton pack and shoot it at the keyhole, and I want it to, like, electrocute the guy on the other side that's got, like, the key in there. Well, you're going to want to roll for that. How they deal with rolling is different. How they measure success, it's all in the rule book, but in general, you're rolling a bunch of d6s, and you have a measure of, was the roll good or bad? So if rolling tons of 6s is good, rolling tons of 1s is bad, that doesn't say whether you succeed or fail. So for that example I just gave, say the goal was, I want to fire my proton pack and electrocute the other guy, and I roll a bunch of 1s. The outcome might be that I do that, and then I also supercharged it and disintegrated the door and the guy. Now we don't get to interrogate him. The initial goal happened, but a piggybacked, not great outcome also happened. I got to choose what happened for that. So it's up to you as a player to incur on yourself the negative result. One of the other things you do in this game is every session or every primary scene, each player has the option to, once during the scene, in a sense, monologue. Have you guys heard of the film noir game from Whose Line? Alright, so what can happen is, we could be in a group, and say I'm trying to do that thing, electrocute him through the keyhole. Alright, someone else can then monologue in the middle of that, and bestow a property on my character. That is then rule of law. It's something that is a part of my character, something just not noticed before. So it could be, I'm going through, I'm doing this, and no one said, it's like, oh, and as he was gearing up, all of us looked in awe, but we just never noticed that horrific tremor that he had before. And then all of a sudden, like, uh-oh, well, that's why I screwed up that roll, and now my character has a tremor the rest of the game. Sometimes they are negative traits that are bestowed. Sometimes they're positive traits. Someone else did a monologue, it's like, that's when we learned they had photographic memory. And we're like, oh, great. And then someone else later added on, he can only remember things that embarrassed him. Because the photographic memory thing was getting a bit too good, we were like starting to break our own stories a little bit, so we willfully nerfed it ourselves.
But it was consistent with what happened before, right? Or no?
You evolve it as you go. There's a little bit hand-wavy of as these traits are revealed, you just play with the assumption of either it's in character that it just happened, or it's kind of, oh, I never noticed you had a hand tremor before. And I'm like, Yeah, me neither. And you just keep going with it. Like, it was there all along, but now it is a factor and needs to be role-played against. And you do your scenes like that. So the guide is there to kind of prompt and keep things moving, so it doesn't devolve into no one's advancing past a scene. So like you could be 3 people goofing off with this whole keyhole thing and a pile of dust that just happened and a fresh tremor and all this, and then the person who also has a character who's kind of the point person will then say, it's like, and then while you're squabbling over why did you turn him into dust, some mutated sewer rat shows up. And that's how you keep yourselves advanced. I highly, highly, highly recommend trying this game, because you can play it a couple of times with different characters, and just, you get to goof off and try things that wouldn't even fly in a more structured game, but they'll give you ideas on what you might want to do in a more structured game. You had your hand up at one point.
I was more saying, thinking that there's another game that's called like One Last Job. That's generally better for 1 shots or maybe 2 shots, but that's another game where you do have someone who kind of sort of runs it, but everybody else, you have a character. Like, I think you get to choose your name, and that's it. Everybody else starts saying what their story is about your character. And that's how it gets built up.
There's a lot of really cool things like that. I very much am in favor of playing games like those. I don't do games like that back to back too much, because I like the lack of structure for a little while, and then I usually end up like, alright, now I want to do something that's got a little bit more structure to it. But those games, even the couple of times I've played them, if it failed and exploded or whatever, that's done more for me as a role player, just giving me a chance to try stuff where I don't care if it works or not, has been more freeing than most other stuff. And it's the same principle on why I say, if you can and you want to try getting on stage at Oozline, do it. Because it'll make you a little bit more loose when you're at the gaming table. And, you know, instead of, alright, I threatened the guy. Alright, I rolled an 18. Or instead I can go, you're gonna tell me where she is? And then maybe the GM pushes his chair back and goes like, no, I'm not, I'm gonna kill you! And then hopefully you're not actually holding a real knife, but maybe it's a butter knife, and that breaks the immersion, and then people laugh, and then you get back to it.
Swear to me. Coming at you with a spoon.
And maybe the character's actually wielding a spoon. You know, there was a game where I had a friend who was a GM, and he liked cooking way too much, and one of the artifacts in the game was the salad fork of Armageddon. The in-character reason was there basically was a lich that went insane that used to be a chef, and decided that the world was not worthy of such fine arts, so he made a salad fork of Armageddon and was going to blow up the world with it. And like, yeah, we were laughing about it, but in-game it was played straight. And that, like, people were like, wait, you mean it's an actual salad fork? Like, yeah. But it's actually gonna, like, kill us all. Yeah. Oh, that's not good. Does this lich have disciples? Like, yeah. Like, so what, they're chefs? Cannibals. Oh, that's actually kind of creepy. Okay. So, like, there was this balance of humor and weird where we're like, we wanted to joke and rip on it, but there was enough weight to it of, alright, I could believe an insane lich making a salad fork of Armageddon.
An army of
Beware the brassiere of elemental control.
All sorts of stuff like that. Let's see how much time we have. Oh, no. What's it do next? Text adventures, right? Or do I have to go somewhere else for that?
Text adventures is in here.
Oh, alright. Well, in any case, thank you all for coming and listening. I'm Dragor. If you see me the rest of the weekend, you want to blab at me about role-playing game or Dungeons & Dragons stuff, I friggin' love it.
I brought my gaming stuff, but I left it in my car.
Hope you guys got something out of this. Text Adventures is going to be in here. I'm going to run that. So, thank you all. Hope you have a good time.